I wanted to cover a few ideas that are being talked about just with a lot of people in the spiritual community. And oh, sorry, my feet are itchy. And that are really so personal that it's really hard to do the one size fits all kind of in even the ascension timelines and that sort of thing. It's kind of like COVID. One thing we learned through COVID, and I hope we all did, is um, there is no one size fits all for anything, right? And that includes the ascension timelines as well. So you have to really be so honoring of your own journey and your own lived experience that even if you hear somebody else is going through their ascension timeline in a certain way, and you haven't gone through that yet, don't decide, like, and I'm talking things like ascension symptoms and stuff like that. You don't want to take on their story though and go, oh, I'm not there yet because I haven't experienced that. They've got a different recipe than you, right? So their ingredients there, will say, involves going through these symptoms because they've somewhere along the line they've got this decision, maybe no pain no gain, who knows where they took things like that on. And obviously it's pretty easy to see that it's an easy program to have accepted, that friction creates the growth and that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be everyone. It doesn't have to go through the same friction. So the growth can be different for each of us, right? And it is, and that's the thing. So observe other people and what they're going through, and hear their stories, just so you can kind of normalize the conversation, and you normalize change within your field. You're normalizing the energy of evolution. You're bringing back this crystalline consciousness, and we use the words online, but that our physicality is not a machine. So it's more, what it is we're more waking up to our the consciousness of our liquid, our water, our that plasma light body, which is probably more the crystalline consciousness, right? And your whole fascia, there's um, mm, systems where signals are being sent and broadcast and received and transmitted and activated, that are waking up these more, they were more formally kind of held in stasis kind of codes, we'll say. And that's what, when I'm doing my light coding, that's what we're doing. We're really bringing in consciousness. We're flowing it into these areas, that's bringing it into it's the liquid light. We're activating it. It's like we're stirring it up a bit. We're waking it up. It's like, hello, over here, the dragons, the sleeping dragons. It's funny. My hands want to do that as I'm talking, so I hope this is okay. It's that storyteller in me. Oh, that's interesting. But I'm giving you a bit of a visual, right? And so that's also, as a New Earth teacher, I'm just trusting. Something's being lifted. I'm just trusting that. My conversations around this, because I've let go of all the intellect. I shouldn't say all of it, because there's obviously a higher divine intellect that's doing all the coding and programming through me, but it's not from my personality. The personality is a really good, it's that protector persona that we've got, and but it and people would call it your ego, but it really is, it serves and it keeps us um, foot in the 3D realm, because it doesn't allow us to go full on woo woo, full on fantasy. Because I think that would tip us out of the game. I think that's where psychosis lives. And so, be grateful for your personality, right? And yeah, another thing's being lifted. But yeah, so getting back to what was I talking about? Oh my gosh, I got so sidetracked there. Oof, this energy codes here. Yeah, getting back to other people's ascension stories is it's you want to be fluid enough for your own ascension story to present itself to you, but it might not show up in an obvious way. It might be, and I had this happen to me sitting on the deck the other day, where I don't know if anybody else gets this, but you look out into the sky, and you see all these kind of twinkles of light, and it kind of resembles static. It's like when your TV didn't have a great signal. I don't know. The young people might not remember this, but there was a time where we used to have to, fix the rabbit ears on the TVs, to get a better signal. Otherwise, your picture would be staticky, and it was like that. And I was looking out at the sky and seeing all this kind of static, and it was like I was seeing all the light, that was just twinkling, all over. The whole picture was kind of twinkling. And, the first thing your mind wants to do is, and it could be dust, light was hitting the dust or whatever. But rather than, talk yourself into a scientific explanation, which is very mental, and it's not allowing the energy of a greater part of you, that is, it's the non-physical, and it'll bypass your intellect, right? But you have to have opened the door for it to get to those, those higher vibrational, non-physical, it's the new grid is where we're letting go of the lower stories. It's a bit more, well, there's that fluidness, right? And that crystalline consciousness. It's not a fixed position, right? So it's both, probably, right? And I think that's where we need to just allow. You see a flash of light in the corner of your eye, you don't want to talk yourself out of it. Go, oh, there's something happening. I wonder what's going to shape up over there. I wonder what my new vision's going to look like. I wonder if I'm going to start seeing, the auric fields around people. I wonder if I'm going to start being able to see light in plants and animals, and, in different areas, and that sort of thing. So you want to allow your, that was an interesting one. We cleared something and then brought it back full circle. Oh, that's really interesting. I love it and it really helps me to actually see myself, on the screen, because it allows me to observe, and I'm teaching myself as I'm watching too sometimes. So it's very interesting. So thank you for being part of this, because as a programmer of quantum programmer, working in these light codes, right? And I'm working in that holographic reality, which you are quantum entangled with, right? And that's how, we work and share and show up in a space together. We create this beautiful coherence. You are also helping teach me, right? Because anybody who ever is joining this conversation, we come together energetically, and we are, we all have our thoughts and our certain pathways that we've opened and allowances, and but it's always my intention to bring through whatever's in the highest and most appropriate at the time. So as I'm speaking, and my intention was to talk about your process, and to allow you to have more grace for your own process, and to see what others are experiencing with compassion, but don't take on their what they're experiencing as a benchmark or a measurement for where your evolution is at. We've got so many little things that give us, I'm going to say, the temperature of the feedback of humanity. The Schumann resonance, right? You can see it as a digital thermometer of humanity's consciousness that's going through its own evolution right now. We've got the light codes coming in that are activating us and spiking those the readings, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can see the feedback happening. There's this world events, but the spiritual community shares a lot of its own events, and but again, it's not one size fits all, right? If this is observe the collective, right? Send it, love and compassion, but just know that, when you see those birds, the murmurations, of a whole bunch of birds flying together, some birds appear to be at the very front, right? And and I'm not thinking of those Canada geese. I'm thinking about the murmurations where they're circling around and up and down. And, we are more like that right now than, we might have been more like the Canada geese before, where, we had certain, we were there was the vanguard, whereas there was that pyramid structure, and we had the leader, and taking us from one place to another, and a couple times a year, that kind of thing, right? And it might have been a bit more, and that's probably the scale of the consciousness that those birds hold. This thing is, everybody operates at a different scale. So some people are part of the team where they're really dialed in, and their scope of their work and their consciousness and what they're experiencing is very nuanced and detailed and within their own world. And some people are working big themes. Some people are galactic, and so but I suspect the spiritual community is not so much those Canada geese, right, that are going, north to south kind of thing, twice a year, which might be, a broader position that those birds are holding because they're bigger, that sort of thing, right? But we might be more like those, the murmurations of all those starlings or the smaller birds, where sometimes you get somebody that seems, at the front end of the murmuration, and then and then another one at the bottom, another one at the top, but they're all shifting and creating together. Oh, it's not funny. I'm tapping into something that's really fluid there. But knowing that there's still a coherence within that. Oh, that's what it feels like. It feels like that's how we're bringing ourselves back online, is by observing the mirrors that other people are holding, but not with any sort of fixed position of where they are and what they're doing. And so nobody gets a bigger seat at the table. We're just all playing our part, and we're holding a bigger coherence of light and love, and evolution, for our own evolution. And that's how we're bringing these light bodies back online. So yeah, that felt, that was very interesting. So maybe that's all that wanted to come in today, was just, again, just a reminder. We always say honor where you're at, but it's, I see a lot of people saying that, things are going to get worse, and buckle up, kind of buttercup sort of thing. And, but I've been hearing people say that for a long time, right? And my experiences of it hasn't been as rocky, we'll say, as others. And this is not a braggy thing. I mean, I lost my daughter, in 2018. So that was my rocky ride, right? And, but since then, I fully surrendered and trust, and the divine has woken up in me in a way where it just moves through me. My hands are, Deborah has not got anything to do with what's coming through there. These are my hands doing their own thing. And so I'm, I think that aspect of me is kind of, can, trim the sails and lean into the storm, and when it comes, that sort of thing, in a bit more of a graceful movement, because I'm steering, and I've taken the wheel. Oh, that's really an interesting metaphor there, right? So you've got to captain your own ship, right? It's always about water, isn't it? Right? It comes back to the seas and and I'm going to share a funny story. Years ago, when I first started doing coding, I was getting a lot of dreams around this pair of artists that I know, and they'd chuckle if they knew that they showed up in my dreams, because I didn't know them very long. They moved away when I had my gallery, but I met them when they were going to our university in the town that I lived in, and their names were Jordan and David. And they were a married couple of artists, and a really lovely couple. Anyways, they were showing up in my dreams around the time, I think I talked about this before, where I kept having these David dreams, tons of them, until I finally woke up in my neighbor's house and I was opening windows and letting in light into his house and pulling back the curtains and, well, of course, which was the veils, right? But I woke up in the house of David, right? And it was okay. That was a big metaphor there, right? So then I had some context for the David dreams, but the wife, Jordan, and I realized, okay, well, I sing a lot of those. Like I always sing in the car, Michael row the boat ashore, right? And, you know, and the river of Jordan is deep and wide. Hallelujah. And I've got a home on the other side. Hallelujah. So sorry, forgive me for that, but I just funny it wanted to be heard in that way because music allows things to land, right? You pull in the frequency, and the frequency of what the home on the other side is. Something needed to become in there. So our we've left ourselves so many crumbs, so many clues, so many ways, right? That's the thing. We are at this point where you're your own cook in the kitchen, and what's your recipe for how you're going to break through of your the separation veils that you've put in, the disempowerment ones. They were all great. I mean, gosh, what a experience we had. What a growth we did. I mean, this is an amazing. And again, I know I talk about all these things that we set that up. That this earth journey is so textured and so nuanced, and there's so many understandings that have come through. One of the biggest understandings I had to go through, and it was really difficult, was that whole law of correspondence, that every action has an equal and opposite. And it sounds great, in theory, but how do you apply that to life, right? And so, in life, we judge, narcissist, right? And then you've got your martyrs on one hand. A lot of spiritual people they martyr themselves, and the people judge spiritual people. They're supposed to be selfless, and they're not supposed to ask for money, and these are gifts, and all that sort of stuff, right? But on the other hand, and these are both, that whole narcissist on one side and the martyr on the other. Because the narcissist exists. It's probably the martyrs exist. The narcissists have to be there too, right? I'm not sure which one came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And it doesn't really matter, right? But the judgment, right? So of it is difficult because it is serving as far as somebody can go into being a martyr. And how do martyrs serve us? Well, they're very selfless, right? They're what's the word? They're giving. There are charitable, people that live to serve others and help, and so it's a very selfless life, right? Well, how do the narcissists serve, right? And because that we know they are the exact opposite, and they couldn't exist without each other, right? And so the narcissists are holding permission to be more selfish, right? Because you can't step into your goddess consciousness if you're constantly being selfless, right? So there is that aspect that of you that says, permission for greatness, right? Can we step up and put ourselves first here? Can we put that gas mask on, in the airplane or whatever, the air mask, the oxygen mask? Sorry, my gas mask. The oxygen mask. Well, I guess it could be. There's the equal and opposite, right? One's oxygen, one's gas, right? That's the thing. Can we put the mask on ourselves first so we can be of service to help others, right? Because you're no good to anyone else if you don't take it to yourself. So, and of course, people go, well, that's not what the narcissists are doing. No, but they're activating pathways of consciousness of these higher permissions, of permissions that say, I deserve, right? I I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to, um, I'm going to aspire to greater things. I'm going to allow somebody else to serve me, right? Because, you can't have a martyr if there's not people that are allowing themselves to be served either, right? So they're really, oh, it's funny, look at how the cross referencing. That's really interesting because this is how I always work the Mobius strip, but it's literally, oh, we're bringing it all back. The martyr and the narcissist, right? They are literally two sides of one coin, right? And they were beautiful parts of the experience, weren't they? Right? They gave us characters, right? They gave us friction for growth. They gave us, excitement, right? They gave us obstacles in this obstacle course that we built for ourselves, right? But they also gave us the beauty of the service. So it's the same thing in religion. You've got those, the religions that are, maybe all about bringing in light, right? So it's, we know the higher up we go to get the light, what has to happen? What's its equal and opposite, right? So, those people that came in to serve the darkness, right, are actually holding the opposite pole. That's that every action has its equal and opposite, right? They are serving those who actually said, I'm going to reach for the light in this lifetime. So we had a whole bunch of souls sign up to say, okay, I'm going to hold the other space for you, right? So who's the real martyr, right? It's not the selfless people that are serving others, because they're still getting something out of it. They're still getting, they feel good about that service work, right? So, the people that signed up to play those really dark roles, to be the narcissists, to be hated, to be misunderstood, to be judged, to be seen as selfish, right? All these things, or the people that are what do you call that? Where they're worshiping the dark, or whatever, false gods. I don't even know what they are, but they've allowed us to reach for more light, right? Because again, you just can't all run to one side of the dock or it tips. So we're all, the more of us that can come back into our neutrality, into our 0 point, and we can hold this space in the middle here, we're collapsing those pairs of opposites, right? So we're non-polarized, right? We are holding a broader span, a pillar of our light that is non-charged. So we're not going to, when people come into our field, they're not going to be triggered by our shadows, right? When people are in distortions, they've got something is being activated, right? And spinning in a negative way. They're still holding something in a victim consciousness, in judgment, right? So they're spinning something in a negative way. We know its opposite exists, right? And the same thing, if they've got a fantasy and they're spinning something too much in a positive way. Our fields, when we can get back into our 0 point more and more, and create, I always ask for bumper lanes, and into, dear spirit, please allow me to create a default program of this non-duality, so I may hold this state of neutrality for others in this beautiful light filled container, right? And so, however you want to ask for it, be that, so that you can hold that space where people can come into that energy and find and collapse their charges and find their 0. Because we're not going to be able to find our inner, allowing others to steer our wheels, to say your ship has to look like this or go down here and you're going to experience this, because that's still not honoring where you're at. You might have already gone past the bumpy part, right? You might be in your graceful period, right? You might just, be floating down, the river from here on, right? Or up, I guess it's maybe, I don't know, because the river of life flows through us, right? That's the thing. And it's, it comes down, it goes down to Gaia, it loops down through her heart, comes back up. It's all, oh yeah, there you go. So that's the up and down. And, our DNA allows that beautiful ladder. We've got two channels, going up and down, right? And we've got all the different crystalline consciousness coming back online. So there's a lot of different ways where energy can flow and move through us, right? So the more of us that can release the blockages, right? By not hanging on to the stories. So people often do, what do they call that? It's somatic kind of movements, energy work with other people that, that are assisting them with they're unblocking their body. And I do that in the hologram when I'm working with people, right? It's, it's through the principle of quantum entanglement, because I connect with their higher self and their teams, and we're doing it in that way. You can do it in whichever way resonates for you, right? Some people need to have the more hands-on kind of feeling. But when you really understand quantum entanglement, you don't need the outside in. You literally know you can connect at the smallest piece of you. Oh, we're going to go within. Well, that's interesting. And that smallest little piece of you, your soul essence, that spark that is active and alive in every cell within you, we can go to that, subatomic level in these quantum entangled states, right? It's just what pathways have you opened to allow that to be real, right? So that's as deep as we can go. They always say you can only meet energy to the depth that you've met yourself, right? But meet yourself there. Go into your meditations and just sit with that energy of oneness, of nothingness, of just pure beingness. So that if somebody is working with you, or these codes, for instance, like right now coming through, and you're just sitting there in that oneness, and you just surrender and ask your teams that, I trust that whatever's in the highest of the highest or most appropriate will be activated and cleared and enhanced and transmuted, aligned, balanced, harmonized, and brought into coherence within me. And I thank you, thank you, thank you. And however that felt for you just now, thank it. If you felt a goosebump somewhere, you thank it. Thank you, Spirit, for showing you how that inside out energy works. Thank it. And ask for more of these signals, more of the feelings and impressions and sonic waves and pulses and heat, whatever feelings that can be made available to you. Just, you don't want to force it, you just want to allow, but thank them when they show up. Yeah, thank you. Whew. Okay, and that feels complete. So enjoy. I hopefully that that coding session was beautiful for you, because what did we start with? Yeah, you doing you and trusting your journey, and don't going into any fear with, no matter what the collective is, the murmuration of us. We're all in the light. We're all working towards a goal. So there is a collective consensus that's being creative in the outpicturing, but your space within it is still in your sphere of influence. So your ride can be a little smoother than others, just simply because you've allowed more grace, right? More ease, and not judging yourself if it doesn't work or something pops up, because we're all human, right? And what is a human? Well, hues, and we think about color, right? Um, they're That's why that one size fits all can't work, because it's not black and white. It's hues. It's all the stages in between. It's all the colors of the rainbow, right? So there's no one size fits all there. There's no prescription, right? There's no one path, right? Your your pathways, that how you allow light, that's your constellation of who you are and where you are available for. So what we're doing is, in these conversations, we're trying to open up new branches, new pathways, new, oh, okay, light can come through me there now. Oh, light can come through me there. And we're going to keep expanding until your wholeness, you are a city of lights, right? Within yourself. You've not dimmed any streets because you've decided this is bad over here, or these people are bad, or this story is bad. You've brought wholeness and light into all these areas within yourself. So that's the goal, and we're all working on it, So it doesn't have to happen fast. There's a divine timing of it, because we're not going to fry our nervous systems, So trust your body, trust your physicality, that it knows exactly how it can show up for you in the most appropriate way. And yeah, so sending you lots of love. Okay, bye bye now.